and I was leaving work and I was brutally attacked by two armed robbers who beat me up very badly. And I really thought I was going to die. They held a sawed off shotgun to my head. That I realized I had been out of my body again, that I had these unusual abilities, that I could foresee events that were going to happen anywhere in the world. There is one set of a series of events that I have seen with one person on the planet. I can't say the person's name because they're quite a prominent person. And I saw genetic engineering. You can see everything all at once, past, present, future, but it takes years to integrate all of those images.
So, Terry, you had three near death experiences.
Yes, I did. The first one, I was 15 and I was in hospital, very ill. I was dying. And I dreamt, it felt like a dream that an angel was taking me up to heaven. And when I came back, I was in hospital. And the next morning, when the doctor came in to see me, he said, "You're well, you're completely healed. We don't understand this. This is like a miracle." And they let me go home. So that was the first one. Of course, I didn't really pay much attention to it. And then another one, I think, was when I was 16 and I had a, a miscarriage, and I blacked out, and I was found myself out of my body in another realm. And that one didn't last very long. So then I was back in body again. And I thought it was very unusual. It was an unusual experience, and I didn't have the capacity to really understand what it was. And then the third one was in 1986, and I was 30. And I was leaving work and I was brutally attacked by two armed robbers who beat me up very badly. And I really thought I was going to die. They held a sawed off shotgun to my head and a crowbar in my face. That was after they beat me. And they were demanding to get into the building where I worked. But I had left the building and slammed the door behind me because I felt something was wrong. And I was very anxious. I don't remember anything for 11 months, like very, very brief memories, because I had a brain injury, spinal injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder, and it took a really long time to recover. At 11 months, I realized I couldn't read. And that's when I realized I had a brain injury. And it was during the course of my recovery that I realized I had been out of my body again in another realm, but this time with three, it appeared like three male entities on a mountain that felt so warm and so bright, and it just felt like home. And their information exuded into me like telepathy. And I was trading or exchanging something with them. And then all of a sudden, I'm back in a body again. I looked at the body and I thought, well, whose body is this? I thought I was dead. And this body doesn't fit. And then I realized over the course of the next little while, as I was still in recovery process, that I had these unusual abilities, that I could foresee events that were going to happen anywhere in the world, that it felt like whoever I was died and somebody else came into a different body that I didn't recognize. But in that whole process, I had what I now understand was a past life review and a future life review. And I started remembering I had all these dreams and visions that started coming true in the order that I remembered them, and I had written them all down. And I really didn't understand what happened and couldn't process these new abilities. And so I started researching, and then I found the International Association for Near Death Studies. So I joined them and really started to understand what happens to people when they have a near death experience and how it expands their consciousness, how you can leave your body through out of body experience and come back with information that you didn't have before. So then I remember having two dreams about my brother and his son. And the first dream was about a car accident. And so I phoned one of our sisters to get my brother's phone number to warn him about the dream, but I was packing for a trip and I didn't want to miss the flight and I didn't phone my brother. And 2 weeks later, when I came back, I had another dream that there was a child on a bed and the bed was moving into a hole in the wall and there was a cloudy brain. And I woke up and I thought, this is not a dream. This is a visit with a child, but who is the child? And I went to work and I was paged by my sister on the phone. And she told me that our nephew had been hit by a car that night and he was in the children's hospital in a coma. They did an MRI scan showing a cloudy brain. So we all met in my brother's city. And my brother pulled me aside and told me about the accident. And then he takes me into a room where there's a little 8-year-old boy laying in a coma. And it was the first time I met him. And I just stood in shock and prayer. And I wondered how I could see this boy twice before I ever met him. And I, I felt guilt for many years because I didn't actually phone my brother. And I wondered, could I have prevented the accident? And so then I found the International Remote Viewing Association, where I went to listen to one of my favorite scientists speak. And there I found my peers. They could do this remote viewing. And I found somebody to train me. It was Lynn Buchanan. And I was amazed at what he could do. And then I found myself doing exactly the same thing through training. So after I was fully trained in controlled remote viewing, well, I want to back up because one of the sessions I said, if we can see the future, is there anything we can do about it? That's why I went for training, because I was still in this guilt mode over not phoning my brother to warn him about the car accident. And so he said yes. He took me on a time experiment, forward and backward in time, doing a target. And I was absolutely amazed that you could get full sight contact doing a controlled remote viewing target. And so from there, I was fully trained through his organization. And then I went to Arthur Findlay College for spiritual mediumship. And I learned another skill set. And then I went to work and started doing readings for people, medical intuitive, spiritual mediumship to connect to departed souls, all kinds of different readings. And I make very detailed notes and I get very specific, exact information for them. Doesn't matter time or location on earth or so. I use these abilities and they continue to evolve, which is very interesting. And now I'm studying functional medicine to round out my offerings even more and help people even on a deeper level. So that's kind of the short story of how I got here and the amazing impact that a near-death experience can have and how it's not widely understood through different medical disciplines. But there is a really good Netflix series called Saving Hope, and it's a hospital setting with specialists and surgeons who have near-death experiences, and it shows them in a very accurate portrayal of what happens to people when they have a near-death experience. But there are often these new abilities that become obvious that I, at that time, really needed professional training with.
Was it hard to integrate these new abilities in your everyday life?
Yes, it was very hard. I just trained my volume up. Until I had professional training, I didn't really know how to use it, but now I know how to use it on command, and I am understanding it more and more all the time because that was in 1986, and it's many years later, and I have, I guess, 18 years of professional experience with it. So I'm always amazed when I do a session with people, always, because everybody's different and different information comes through. This tragic accident or attack, armed robbery attack, was actually the result of it was a gift. And processing that gift was really difficult. It took an army, a small army of professionals to help put me back together again. And then years of discipline training to learn how to work with it.
Do you have any interesting future predictions?
There is one set of a series of events that I have seen with one person on the planet, but I haven't met that person in this physical modern life yet. And I feel like I will. I can't say the person's name because they're quite a prominent person, but I've had all kinds of indications about advanced technology and information systems, etc. And because of that, I went to university to study computer engineering so that I could really get a handle on what I was shown. And that's kind of how I describe it. One neurologist described the armed robbery assault to me this way. He said, when you have a gun at your head and you know you can't escape, your body creates adrenaline. And if you can't escape the adrenaline cascades, and there's a death hormone that's released in the body to prepare your body for death. And in that moment, you can see everything all at once, past, present, future. But it takes years to integrate all of those images. And he said, you will have a problem with adrenaline for a very long time. So that's the after effect in the clinical, well, almost clinical description of a near-death experience when you cannot escape. And there are those who just have a past life review, and there are some who have not only the past life review, but the future life review as well. So they actually come back knowing their future.
Do you think that we plan our lives before we come to Earth?
I grappled with that for a long time. I went, is this free will? But I feel like what happened on the mountain with those three beings felt like a destiny plan, because I saw lots of screens, lots of images, and parts of those images and screens I actually walked through later in life, meeting those people and seeing those circumstances come to fruition. So I also studied some neurosciences to try and understand at a technical level what's really going on. But again, the Netflix series Saving Hope really shows it very, very well and exactly, pristinely, what happens in a near-death experience. In my opinion, it's an evolution of consciousness. It feels like I had a reincarnation experience, because I don't know a better term to phrase it. But it really felt like whoever I was died and somebody else came into this body, but I didn't fit this body with a different life plan. So yes, I think we do plan. Somebody has a hand in the planning. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been with those three entities. And so, and it's outside the realm of religion. It's beyond religion, because they were of a culture that's not mine. And so at least that's how they appeared to me. They appeared from a different, or appeared to be from a different culture. So I looked into all the religions and philosophies, and this whole spiritual evolution, I'm going to call it, evolution of consciousness, doesn't fit with the religions that I researched. So it's kind of an evolution, maybe the next step that humans, or one of the next steps of evolution that we're going to be encountering more as time goes on. There's lots of people that have near-death experiences. They're all unique, they're all different, but they all lead to the same evolution of consciousness, if we're open to it and if we have the support around it. And not everybody does. Sometimes people will just shut it down. They don't know where to go. They don't know who to ask. They have these abilities. They don't know what to do with them. They get scared. There's lots of scenarios because everybody's different.
Can you tell us a bit more about remote viewing? How exactly does that work and what kind of stuff do you see?
Controlled remote viewing is a very easy, simple process. It involves learning some characters and a lot of practice because you're disengaging your ego and your thinking mind to kind of freewheel and and gather information anywhere on the planet or even off planet. But regardless of time or space, we're taught how to find and interpret information that we gather, and it's done through symbols. It kind of it's simple actually. Some people are much better at it, but that's um, either their ability or training. And it's a scientific set of protocols that was created with the help of Ingo Swann and a team of people from IRVA, which is the International Remote Viewing Association. And they have ongoing meetings and an established organization for anyone that's interested in it. They have amazing teachers there. Um, and it helps you connect with full sight contact to any person, place, or event where you can actually feel a building. You can feel a flower or a person or an animal or anything with precision, with accurate precision. They teach you how to extend your consciousness, and that's the discipline of it. And that's why you have to set aside your ego in order to do the work. Um, and your thinking and analytical mind, you have to set that aside too, to be able to do the work accurately.
And is it limited to the present or can you also see events from the future?
You can do past, present, future, and you get full sight contact at each past, present, or future level, where you actually feel it. You'll feel it. You'll feel the person, the place, the event, with remarkable precision. And there's a lot of discipline around protecting how you view and how you feel, so that you don't carry it with you if you're viewing a traumatic event like 9/11, so that you don't carry that information that you've picked up with you in your everyday life. That's just one example.
What do you think is the purpose of life and why are we here?
Well, I have unusual memories of it felt like I was on a craft when I was outside of time and space, and I saw genetic engineering happening that wasn't in this time and not in this dimension. So I've had these interdimensional experiences that I still haven't come out about, but they're still there and they still affect me every day. So I believe that we have been genetically engineered. And I believe that there are other beings that possibly come into our dimension. Maybe they're already here and they're just well hidden. I'm not sure. But there is that whole other area of purpose to our lives. And I really do think it's about the evolution of humanity, because now we're preparing to live off world once they can get to another planet and set up systems there. So I think it's an extension of however we got here in the beginning.
What are some of the messages that you have received and stand out to you the most?
That relationships, it's about relationships. It's about, um, in my controlled remote viewing training, we were taught remote influencing, which you can use to harm or heal. And so the work I do is for healing. I understand some people want to use it for harm, and I'm not one of them. But we have energy, we have power. Once you know how to harness that and start using it, you can help a lot of people. And the opposite is true. You can hurt a lot of people if you use your power and your energy the wrong way. And a lot of people do that too. It depends on a person's evolution and a decision that they make in their life about how they want to show up in life and what they want their legacy to be. Do they want their legacy to be one of peace or one of hatred? Or, it's totally individual. We have free will, and that's how it shows up, is how we conduct our lives.
Do you have some practical advice that people can use in order to raise their vibration?
Uh, a healthy lifestyle, addiction free, um, a healthy nutritional diet, taking time to meditate each day, even if it's for short, brief periods at a time, to disengage the intellect and the ego so that you can go inward to center yourself. Those practices help to raise your energies and your frequencies. When I came back to a body, I had to relearn everything all over again, how to read, write, walk, talk, and interact with people all over again. But in that whole relearning, I became acutely aware of the frequency of things. Everything has a different frequency. And when you align your frequency in a very healthy way, then you can start to discern the frequency of other things, other places, people, events, and just like tuning like a dial on a radio, you can tune into these frequencies. And for me, I see pictures, I hear words, I write what I see and hear and sense and feel. It's remarkable. It's the most intellectually satisfying thing I've ever done and spiritually responsible. So those two things together are what keep me involved in ongoing learning and application of new systems that I can help other people with.
The majority of us are more or less afraid of dying. What is your advice against that?
I personally am not afraid to die. I think that we live on because I connect with departed souls after they've died. They give me very clear information for the person sitting in front of me. So our being lives on. And living this life, I think for the people who are really afraid of dying, they don't understand death. Maybe they think that they're going to be gone forever, but I don't believe that that's true. And because of my reincarnation experience, I believe that some people do come back. I don't know about how many or anything like that, but I feel like I came back. So that's what I can speak to. I can't speak to other people's reincarnation type experiences. But a former spouse of mine was dying and he was terrified. I have never seen a worse death in my life. He was so terrified and so angry. And in hindsight, I'm thinking that obviously he wasn't prepared. He didn't understand. There's more he wanted to do. He felt like his life was being cut short. He wanted to do way more. And so it's letting go. The letting go process can be difficult or it can be easy. And I've seen many people die, and I've seen people who have this great peace about dying. They're ready to let go, and I can see them letting go. And then I see the other ones that are terrified. They're not ready to let go. They feel they're being cheated. They have all these unresolved issues. And that's the part I think that is making them afraid. All the unresolved issues that they've never had a chance to deal with or accept about themselves or between others. And so when departed souls come through and they are talking to their loved one, I have seen miraculous communications. And I've witnessed the departed healing and the living healing in that session. It's unbelievable. It's miraculous. And so that tells me that just because you're dead doesn't mean you still can't heal. doesn't mean you still can't communicate with your loved one. I've seen many, many examples of that.
What is the most important lesson that you have learned so far?
Wow, wow, what a great question. Um, Not to be afraid of unusual experiences or unusual states of consciousness, um, visions. Some people might call hallucinations. Um, I don't think the medical health industry is really attuned to the spiritual evolution part of psychology. And so not to be afraid of what you experience, of what you hear, because there's avenues for training for someone who is starting that path of, let's call it, spiritual evolution. Some people call it enlightenment. There's many terms you can use, but not to be afraid of it. And life is a process of growing. We need to grow through life. And if you get stagnant or stuck, that's when things can go wrong. You know, we're meant to grow. We're meant to develop, not to get stymied. And lots of people get stuck.
How can people find more about you and your work?
I have a website. It's www.terryandersen.com, and it's TerryAndersen.com. So that's how they can connect with me. They can have a look there and see all the different services that I'm offering. And in a few months, I'll be offering the even more services because I'm still taking courses.